All right, we're back with another coffee chat. So you want to know what not to do when listing your home. So that's our main topic for today. So make sure you stick around to the end for the number one tip. So Kelly, what do you think not the number one, but one of the things?
Counting backwards.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we could talk a long time about this,
For
but
sure.
so we'll try and rein it in. But I know that when we first go on listing appointments, we initially recommend a pre-listing inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people don't take that recommendation, but the ones that do don't regret it because it's, important to know what's going on in your house. Even if you live in it full time, there's so many parts of your home, like when's the last time you were in your attic?
I would say, especially if you live in your home full time.
Right, exactly.
Because
More that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So really not doing the pre-listing inspection is like from day one, like detrimental to what, the sales process. And then once
you're
you
negotiating leverage.
Right. And once you have that inspection report, then assessing from there, okay, I'm going to make these repairs. And some people choose not to make any repairs, which is fine because at least then they can disclose the issues and price accordingly. But, just not having a handle on what's going on in your home behind the walls, under the foundation.
Right. You don't want any surprises when you get under contract and then you're in the inspection phase and then suddenly it could blow up.
Right.
So it'd be easier just to do it from the very beginning.
Right.
And maybe, your house is totally fine, which 9 times out of 10 it is. But that's a good way to
I have a
do it.
novice question.
Okay.
So just setting up a situation. If you don't do it, something does happen, the buyer cancels within, let's say this is the contract that they're under, within their rights they cancel, it goes back on the market.
Yeah.
Oh,
and and that's a huge,
disadvantage.
Yes.
Huge disadvantage.
Hurdle to overcome. Putting on the market, you now have to disclose that or remedy it. And then even if you remedy it, you still have to disclose it. Right. And so, that's just a bigger hurdle that you could have prevented from day one. So I would think, that's the most important thing starting out that you should do that most people don't take into consideration. So, And then with that, once you know how healthy or unhealthy your house is, lack of a better word, pricing accordingly. So if there are things wrong, what does that mean to the value of your home? Or even if there isn't anything wrong, and it's not a matter of, okay, my home is great, so I can, price it however.
Or I bought it for X.
Right. All of that is irrelevant. You really have to look at the comps and the competition and what's going to meet your goals. So.
And you only really get one opportunity to present your home on the market for the first time. So you want to put it at that good price point or that appropriate price point, because if you were like, oh, let's just list $200,000 over what I think maybe it's worth, that's fine, but then it's going to sit, drop, eventually it'll drop, and then people are like, oh, why has it been sitting? What's wrong with it? What's going on here? So
and people think that, oh, well, I know that it's worth X, so I'll list it for 7% over X, so I have some room to negotiate. But that's not like, if you're priced right, people aren't afraid to pay list price. People think there always has to be negotiating room. There doesn't if you're priced appropriately.
Very savvy buyers know it's right. Yeah, and
exactly.
they'll offer at that price.
Right.
Or sometimes they'll offer above.
Right.
They're like, oh, no, go.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I think something you said about the pricing really made me think about another key, factor in things not to do, which that segues kind of my thought process into, you said comps. You were like, it's really important to price based off of comps, which I completely agree. And then those comps, especially in a market like Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch, where we're seeing so much new construction. I mean, it is nonstop new builds everywhere. And that's a huge part of the competition. And I think it's important as a seller to be an educated seller and see what are they building right now? What is my competition as far as, in my price point, especially if you're in Lakewood Ranch. I mean, let me just use it, that's like a softball. What is the neighborhood down the street? What's their design style like? What colors are they using in the wall, because if that's what's selling, and they know, I mean, because they're professionals, they have designers coming in there building and designing to today's standards, then what does that mean for my home? You know, and I hate to use the word outdated, but is my home outdated?
Right.
And, you know, professionals like us are able to come in and take a look and, you know, provide guidance on that.
Right. And so yeah, in addition to making repairs to make your home compete with those new construction, like aesthetically making your home competitive with those homes. And if that's what people want, and that is what people want. So yeah. And I know that the other along those aesthetic lines that we sometimes struggle with people is continuing to maintain, you know, so people get it beautiful, impeccable for day one on the market, but sometimes it doesn't take 1 week on the market to sell a home. And so just having someone who continues to maintain their home, you know, and not letting the landscaping slide or the interior slide, and having it always show ready when we do have showings. Need to, you know, make sure that it's competing with those model homes, even if that's not a direct competitor, but you want your home
absolutely. It won't always be a direct competitor. I mean, again, that was just kind of like a softball, you know, pulling that example. But I do think it's a, you know, and it can be tough because you could have a $12 million home on the water, and it is to the nines, and it is gorgeous. And you had, you know, somebody come in and professionally, you know, handled every piece of artwork to every board, but yet, you know, that could have been done 10 years ago. And it's not until you get in there and you start, you know, kind of looking at those things, do you, especially taking a step back and thinking about what else is on the market, that broader look. But you did say something else that made me think of when you said getting it showing ready. Just making sure that the home is available for showings.
Right. Don't be selective on your availability to show your home. If you want to sell your home, you have to show it.
Available. Make it available.
Yes, it can be inconvenient, but it could be, it takes one buyer. So it could be that one person who really wants to see it at, you know, 5 p.m. on a Friday. Make it work.
Because we'll make it work. We'll show it.
Right. And then once you do get the buyer in the door, not being against renegotiating or making repairs that come up, you know, even if you had the pre-listing inspection and maybe it's been 30, 60, 90 days since then and other things have come up, don't be afraid to agree to doing any repairs, and you know, willing to negotiate and move the process forward, and also with the process, moving the process forward, don't be non-responsive or hard to complete the task that the title agent and other parties are needing you to.
I hate to present a problem without having a solution. So let's say hypothetically we have, you know, we are working with a seller who, you know, wants to do some of these improvements. Like let's say they have darker walls or something like that, and they're interested in making those updates to compete with like a model home and do the neutral color palette, but yet their finances don't allow it. You know, one of my favorite features of, you know, the Coldwell Banker brand is how many options that we can give our sellers and our buyers. And, you know, one of my favorites is definitely I do the Revitalize plan, which allows a seller to essentially take, in the maximum is up to $50,000 of equity out of their home. It is not it's not a credit. This is not a plug. Like I get nothing from it. I don't even get anything from this if a if a seller uses it. I love this program because I have had so many people who are like, well, I don't want to spend that money up front. So there's no credit check. There's no, this is not a loan, but they can take, you know, up to $50,000. So let's say they're just wanting to paint the walls, and let's say that's only $2,000. Or Coldwell Banker gets them a project manager. That project manager takes them through the process, handles hiring the painter. That bill does not get taken to the seller. That comes off the end at closing. So it comes out of their net proceeds. So if it was $2,000, they're not having to stroke that check up front. It comes off the end. And then, you know, it's in the proof is in the pudding, as they say, that in order to do those updates, that home sold faster
Mm-hmm.
rather than sitting on the market. So I'm, a big believer in, making your home show ready and making those updates up front, in addition to making sure that you're doing that pre-inspection.
Right.
Knowing what your competition is so important.
Yeah. Another detrimental thing that people are short-sighted about is finding someone who will do it for less commission.
Oh, yeah.
So that not all, yes, you might say 1%, 1.5%, 2%.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that mean to your bottom line at the closing table, what you're putting in your bank account, and the time associated with that? There are options at every price point commission wise, $500, I'll put it on the MLS, or, I'll do it for 1%. But does that necessarily yield you the most money and in the quickest amount of time?
Right.
It's hard to say, but in our experience, it does not.
Right.
So maybe you're paying you agree to pay an agent 2%, but they don't put a lot of effort in, they don't put a lot of marketing into it, they're not using all the resources, or they're not a global agent and they don't have the resources like we do, being in this brokerage. So it takes 6 additional months on maybe what it would have been 3 months. So you are paying that extra percent.
Right.
Because you're still paying your mortgage and you're still maintaining the home. So at the end of the day, you're still paying that percent, and it's not a benefit for you or that agent because they're not doing anything. Your house isn't being sold, but you're still paying them.
Right.
Okay, so this is a great segue into the number one thing you should not do when selling your home in Sarasota or Lakewood Ranch is to not hire the Kelly Baldwin Group.
I agree. We appreciate you watching today. We would love to work with you. We do have these fun guides that we have created. I should call them fun, but they're extremely informative, and we do hand them out to our sellers and buyers. But Kelly has our listing guide, so it has all of this information in a very clear order, lots of checklists. When leaving the house for a showing, even our home marketing plan, and then if you are relocating to the area, or you're just buying here and you're interested in what's going on in your neighborhood, we created a fun buyer's guide for relocating that hopefully will get you established and well on your way to being a Sarasota or Lakewood Ranch resident.
So if you're interested in seeing either of these guides, please reach out to us, send us a message, an email, and we'd be happy to send these to you. See you next time.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.